Welcome to another episode of the Focus Bee Show. I'm really excited today to be here with Sarah Potter. Sarah is both a hypnotherapist and a coach and joins them together with hypnocoaching. And she helps and empowers business owners to be more confident and resilient and to finally design and lead the life they want to. Thank you so much for being here today, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
One of the areas you specialize in, which I absolutely love, is emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
How do you help business owners to become more emotionally intelligent?
So I work with emotional intelligence profiling framework, which is a scientifically developed framework and tool which helps people to manage themselves better. So it's all about a lot of people think that emotional intelligence is all about just sitting in your feelings and just feeling all the feelings. It's very much about noticing them, but actually then working out, what do I do with them? What's the best way for me to not only observe them, but then manage them in the context of all the people that you want to have better relationships with, that whether that is at work. More specifically, this is a tool that is designed for work, but it also impacts everything outside of that as well, because a lot of our pressures as business owners are about actually creating things that support our bigger desires for life, right? That's why we often create businesses. So it's about actually, well, how do I manage the fact that I need to spend more time doing this right now, but actually my partner or kids or travel buddy, whatever it is, however you decide to activate your business, needs X, and or actually my team needs Y, and how am I responding to that? It's all about self-awareness and awareness of others, and then how you manage each different situation. So this particular tool that I use, you answer lots and lots of questions about how you feel about certain statements, and then it creates a really juicy in-depth profile around 16 different areas, and then you get a score based on kind of how, and your score will come out differently every time you do it. So it's not a binary, this is your profile, and it's not like the personalities profile where actually you are what you are. You might change very slightly, but actually it is what it is. With EIP, so the emotional intelligence profile, it will be different every time you show up for it. So you can see a progression over time. So on those 16 scales, you get a score for kind of your self-regard, how you regard others, how you interact in different situations. And it will, the beauty of it is, so I've revisited it several times over the years, and it's a really gorgeous exercise to do. You see your progress. So my self-regard, the first time I did it, was a 1, because I was putting everybody else's needs before my own, which is a great trait as a coach, right? But actually as a human, not so much. So it's been really, that was my biggest challenge, was to work out how I center myself in how the things that I was creating. So yeah, it's a really gorgeous, you get a really in-depth report out of it, and I help my clients to then work through, okay, cool, you've got these top areas where you're scoring really high, and then a few pain points, like how do we build on the strong ones and then create a plan to develop the pain points. And it starts with business, but it touches on all areas of life, because there's always patterns in how we're showing up in one and the other. And that's the thing that I really love about it, is it starts in one place, and it has a ripple effect on everything.
Absolutely. Business and life always seem to be tied together. I'd never heard of this type of profiling for emotional intelligence. Sounds super, super interesting. I'm wondering, what is one of the number one struggles you come across? So if you're looking at all the different emotional intelligence profiling you've done, what is the sort of key area where people tend to have a low score, or does it vary tremendously?
It really does vary, but I think the one that everybody, I think self-regard is something, I think particularly, so a lot of my clients are creatives, are to empaths, like people that are used to um, serving, or coaches, like we're used to serving, right? And actually you're used to putting other people's needs first, so the self-regard thing, that often comes out much lower than people expect. So like I say, when mine first came back and it was a 1 out of 10, I burst into tears instantly, because I was like, oh my god, if I saw somebody else's score and it was 1 out of 10, I would feel so sorry for them. And so, and I think as business owners, this whole how we're always putting our customers' needs first. It's like you're wanting to create stuff, and then it's actually the burnout, and how do you manage that balance between wanting to show up and help your customers and actually taking care of yourself. So this, the self-regard thing, is the stuff that comes up time and time again. Actually, how are you serving yourself? Because if you're not, or taking care of yourself, really, not serving yourself, if you're not going to be able to serve anybody, whether it's clients or your family or your life that you want, that you set this up to create. And it just gets harder when actually it should be getting easier. So yeah, that is at the heart of most people's, I would say. There's a bit of a surprise because people think, no, I've set this up, but actually you're telling me you're tired, and you're telling me, it doesn't add up. And when you see it in black and white in the scores, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now.
It's such a common pattern, I think, for people who really do care and serve, especially in their business, to end up doing too much of that and too little of self-care, putting yourself last. It's also about boundaries. I feel that a lot of people, partly due to the fact they want to serve, but also due to the sort of stress of making it, they tend to overcross their own boundaries and barriers. So they'll work weekends and they'll overdo it. What do you help someone implement instantly? Let's say someone just did the test, just like you a few years ago, season one in sort of self-care. What's your sort of number one reflex or couple of reflexes where you think, okay, let's put this in place?
I think the first place that I always go with that profile is like, where are you actually winning right now? Where are you actually really delivering? Because there is always something, and our brain will instantly lead us to the places where we're not and where we need to get better. But there is always something that you're doing really well. So celebrate it, because we are not celebrating the tiny wins enough. And that gives you the foundation of the confidence, the pride, the memory of why you started doing these things, to then be like, okay, this is why I went off on this journey. So I do have the right to take care of myself, and I do have the right to do something that's fun, because I am doing these really cool things because we forget. We can, even when I review what I'm doing on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis, and on an annually basis, which if you told me of 7 years ago that I would do that voluntarily and not just do a personal development plan with my company every year, I would have thought you were mental. But actually, it really helps, because we forget by the end of the day. And so for me, that's an act of self-care, is just having a check-in exactly where you are right now. Okay, what have I achieved today? What did I win at? And I don't know what the word win, I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, but like, what have I succeeded at? Yes, acknowledge the challenges as well, and then what am I going to do differently to get past it? Because all the softs, I totally subscribe to all the soft stuff around self-care, in terms of, I will go and have a bath in the middle of the day if I feel stressed, because that makes me feel better, or go for a walk, and all of these lovely things. But for me, self-care is also about recognizing exactly where you're at and witnessing it, so that I have succeeded at this today. I may have overloaded my list, so I did achieve 3 things. I probably shouldn't have put 10 on there. That's a self-care moment, to say you're actually doing okay and you're doing better than you think. Let's just move that stuff to tomorrow, or that is an act of kindness and self-care. So I would always suggest recognizing where you're at and how far you've come is always further than you think.
Essentially, you're distinguishing the self-care practices, such as taking a bath or going for a walk, from a sort of self-care more mindset in some ways, the voices in our head and the kindness. I love that, because both are so important. And I think for a very long time, this is actually interesting. It's funny, when I interview people, I'm always self-coaching myself a bit, but I see for a really long time, and the reason I'm sharing this is maybe some of the audience, or maybe even you, Sarah, have lived this. For a really long time, I had all the self-care practices. So I was doing the meditation and the exercising and finishing my work at a given time, not working weekends, etc. And then I was being coached, because a lot of these realizations come through coaching, let's face it. And my coach said, but where did this come from? And I said, it comes from a feeling of obligation. So I was obliging myself to do all of this, but there was no inner, or not no, but very little inner kindness. So this is why what you just shared right now is so important, because all the self-care practices in the world won't really help us to nurture ourselves and take care of ourselves if everything comes from pressure and obligation? I'm also thinking that something important you were sharing now with finishing your to-do list or feeling like you've maybe put too much on your plate. How can business owners especially overcome this ongoing feeling of not enough, either not good enough or not doing enough? How can they overcome this?
So it's linking it back to the true vision of what it is that you want to achieve, because it's so easy to have ideas. Like by nature, if you're a business owner, you're creative in the way you think, because you can see that there's a solution to a problem. You've got the courage to create it. You've got the courage to create your own framework. So therefore, constantly creating. I mean, I have them on the wall. This is why I have Post-it notes all over the wall. This is my not now. My not now list has currently got like 12 things on it. I have to take it and put it somewhere else, because it's if I used to put it all on my list, I'm like, oh, I've got these things that are all sitting in the ether of things that I could possibly do. But if I dial that down to what my vision actually is for this year and this month and this quarter, if it doesn't align to that, it needs to not be anywhere near what I'm looking at on a daily basis, which is why it goes somewhere else. Because it's not helpful. It's great to be like, yeah, I'm creative and I come up with all these, that's brilliant. But if it sends you off down a track of something completely different to what you're actually focused on or wanting to focus on, it's not going to help, and you won't achieve either of them. And I definitely have been guilty of that in the past. Because for a while I used to work in marketing, and then I transitioned to coaching, and partly because I saw that my marketing consulting clients, didn't have a problem with knowing how to market, because there's a million different sources for how to do your marketing plan or what to do. It was all in the mind. The thing that was stopping them was a fear of change. Even though they would come to me knowing that what they were doing wasn't working, they'd still resist it. They'd pay me and they would still resist changing, because they were like, oh, but I've always done it like this, so maybe I'll do that too, but then that's too expensive. And there were all these stories around why it was but actually, if what you want to achieve is this, you've got to do something different. So that means taking that stuff away that's not working, or taking that stuff away that's a distraction. If you really want to, you have to really be focused on one or two things in order to get any kind of traction. Because if we're going off, well, I want to do this new thing, but I'm going to hold on to this old way of doing it, even though I know it's not working and I know I want to get hit, like there's a tension, right? And you've got to be able to cut the tension and let that thing go, whether it's an old thing that's not serving you, or a shiny new thing which we sometimes cling on to as or not cling on to, get attracted by as business owners, because we're always looking for these solutions. So actually, if it's not leading back to the bigger vision, it's a no. And it might not necessarily be a no full stop, it might be a no for now, but actually just keeping that focus. Otherwise we end up treading water, and that's where you get back to the burnout place again.
And I'm super passionate about focus. My entire brand and everything I do is linked to that. So you say you lose the focus? Yes. I think it's a really, really valid point that you just shared right now. And many, many, many business owners, because of this creativity, get lost in the things they could do, and they add them to the to-do list. So simplifying all of that, keeping the minimum, but still having an outlet for your creativity, like what you shared with your could-do list, that's the best. From what I've seen, that's the best compromise. The reality of, 3 main tasks a day or 3 main outcomes a week, and then at one point, maybe next quarter when it feels right. So you're still letting out your creativity. Otherwise, you feel like it's stuck inside you. So you need a healthy balance.
Absolutely. And when you've got a hold of those couple of things, like that then gives you the foundation, because inevitably, if we're leaving enough room, because there always needs to be space in the day, like something that I never used to do, and I would just jam pack all these things. Actually, there needs to be free, because then you can say, oh, I might actually pull that post-it off the wall and start working on that thing, because I've got space to do it. But if we don't give ourselves that space, if the dialogue, as you say, is this like do, create, we are not machines. We really aren't. We are wild. Humans are animals. We are animals. We are created in a certain way, and actually we're not created to be in this box list way of being. We need to be able to feel through our days too. So if we create that space, then the freedom comes to something that I really resisted for a long time was the idea that freedom comes from structure, because I love freedom is a really important value of mine. But actually it comes from those foundational habits. It comes from those foundational, the ability to chop the stuff out that's not important.
Yes, and I think it's something a lot of creative people do struggle with or refuse to accept. And it is true. I just want to say, yes, structure brings creativity, because in some of my content, because I've worked a lot also with productivity and peak performance, it can come across as very left brain, very structured and organized. I'm highly creative. I needed all of this stuff to have my creativity.
Yeah.
So they definitely do belong together, and it's true. The freedom that comes from it is huge. I want to go on a bit of a tangent here. You studied hypnotherapy, you trained as a hypnotherapist after having gone through coaching.
Yeah.
What was it that inspired you to do hypnotherapy? How did you feel it would contribute to your coaching practice?
So for me, like, we can recognize stuff, right, and still feel like there's something that's holding us back. And I got to that point where I'd been coached, and started my coaching business, and I had all these big ideas and I was living them, and then I would get to a certain point and then I would get really something was holding me back and I just couldn't get to it. I'm like, I know that I can do this, I absolutely know that I can, but there's a belief somewhere sitting in me. I don't think I would have articulated it as being in my subconscious, but it was in my subconscious, and I just couldn't get to it because I had this huge vision of traveling and working and combining the two and living this really creative life. And there was a belief that somewhere that it wasn't for me, and because I would get so far. And so I talked to a friend about it and they recommended me to speak to their hypnotherapist. And that work for me was just so transformational and so fun and freeing. And it just seemed mad that and effectively I call it kind of storytelling for good, because you go in and you change the beliefs that we have are based on outdated stories. And for me, it was so transformational that it just felt like it would be a beautiful complement to the coaching work. Because there are, and there's a thread, because, my old marketing clients were not showing up because they were afraid to speak out for some reason. Or I was talking to a client yesterday who she had a fear about driving, and we got to the nub of where that had come from. And actually driving is holding her back in her business, because she, there's all these things that all connect, and it's all to do with stories. It's all to do with these inner beliefs that are holding us in these places of comfortable discomfort. So it's not necessarily, it's a comfort zone because we know it, but it's wildly uncomfortable because it's not where we want to be. We know that there's this other place that's on the other side of the hill or the other side of the lake, however you want. I love my visual descriptions, but there's somewhere else that we know we can get to, but there's something that's tugging, that's keeping us where we are. And hypnotherapy just helps cut those cords. And it's just, honestly, it's just so much fun. I love it so much.
There's so much that goes on in our subconscious. I feel already when we're coaching people that we can access some of it. It comes out in the words they say and things they do. Yeah. And hypnotherapy is the next layer. I interviewed another hypnotherapist on another episode, Jessica Boston, and she was explaining how if we don't work on the subconscious, we're essentially just accepting that this is guiding our life, and it's 80% of our thoughts, or 90.
Some say it's 90 to 95% of our decisions are made automatically. So if you think what we're doing every day is potentially guided by 5% of our thoughts. So if you even if you access another 5%, if that's all you access, that's a huge impact. But and I find it, I always love speaking to clients after working with them, and then some of the things that I really want to feel like this or do this. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying, like, playing the stuff back to me that they'd said that they'd wanted to be. And I just love those moments because they've just become part of who they are now. And it was something that they were trying to get to, and actually they didn't believe that they could, but we've flipped the switches. And I call it like you're supercharging your subconscious to support you, because as it is, it will automatically often dull down your desires, and because it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to always be like, oh, hang on, not sure about that. That might be dangerous. Are you going to be okay? Because it's wired in a really primal way to protect us from the risk of wild animals. It's not really designed. We are very basic as humans in a lot of ways. We are designed to be on the plains somewhere. We're not designed for the world that we find ourselves in right now. We're not designed for all these mental challenges and emotional things that come up. So we've got to hack it. We've got to supercharge it to be a cheerleader for us and not that fearmonger. Fear will always be there. But I love Elizabeth Gilbert's way of describing, like, it can come on the journey, but it can be in the back seat, and it's not going to be a driver. It's just going to sit there and come along for the ride. It might occasionally point something out to us, but it cannot be driving. It can't be driving the car. It will always be there, but it can't be making the decisions and being our GPS.
No, because if it is, then the results will be very poor, because you're living out of a place of fear and not out of a place of excitement or joy or happiness or peace or alignment or any other place you can be in. It's such a fascinating perspective when we start to realize that we can rewire and hack our subconscious. And there are other ways in hypnotherapy, such as affirmations. That's what it's all about. You're repeating it so often. Visualization, every time you see it in your mind, you get used to it. Journaling. Are there any other tools that come to your mind that people can use to start to rewire their brain, hypnotherapy aside, or as a complementary thing to hypnotherapy?
So I build all these things around for my clients. So journaling is incredible. So having that check-in in the morning, how are you feeling? And it's not like a lot of people think, oh, it's a Dear Diary. It's not. It can be Dear Diary if you want it to be. It can be just a brain dump of. It evolves for me. Sometimes it is a big dump of thoughts to get them out, but also it's a check-in to see how you're feeling and articulate what you need to let go of and what you want to focus on for the day. Visual stuff for me is really helpful. So vision, somebody asked me the other day, have you got a vision board? And I said, yeah. Do you actually look at it? I said, it's on my wall, it's in my kitchen cupboards, it's on my phone, it's on my laptop, it's inside every single notebook that I use, because I use a lot of them. I change it every quarter. Visual stuff for me really helps. Music is really helpful. I call them nudges. So I'll say, I have playlists for different moods, projects, goals, if I want to tune into a particular vibe. So my theme for this year is joy. So I've got a joy playlist on my Spotify. So if I want to get into the vibe of that in the morning, like I was just dancing around the kitchen yesterday to my joy playlist. Scent is another thing that really helps. So I always generally have my diffuser going with something that, at the moment, I think it's got mint and citrus and eucalyptus to get energy going in the morning. And that really helps, because these things, they're all little nudges that help move along the day and that remind us in the moment, because it's not all easy. So a lot of clients, they come to me and they're like, oh, can you fix me? You're going to fix me, right? And I'm like, I can help. You don't need fixing. Let's just get that clear. We can help fix the problem that you've come across, but you've already got the tools inside you. You're not always, yes, we're going to raise your state, but that doesn't mean you're going to stay there all the time. And I see these nudges as like, when you drop back down, it's like, oh, I'm feeling a bit low. I'll put on that playlist and I'll listen to that scent, and then I'll breathe in that scent. It all helps nudge you back up. But this work means that your level will never drop all the way back down here. It just means that you're bumping from a higher base, if that makes sense. So I love all these little nudges that help people keep their mindset positive and their vibration high.
I love how you tune into the senses. I'm totally going to do that playlist idea. I've done something similar in the past, and there are a few songs I listen to, and I'd heard of something similar, but now I'm going to do it. I heard you say it and I was like, oh yes, I'll do that. That's so cool.
And when you do it, like, because I did it for the first time, I've only been doing it for maybe 2 years, and I remember the first time the person said to me, be really aware of the words in the songs, because some of the songs that you think are super uplifting, when you listen to the words, you're like, oh, that's actually a really sad song. It sounds, I like the melody or whatever, but the words in it, and I guess through my hypnotherapy practice and training as well, I'm really aware of the words, because if the words are actually quite low vibe, you know, they're not particularly positive, then they will just be going into your subconscious. So be super aware of the words when you're picking your playlist, because sometimes the things, I can't think of an example right now, but I guess I love a lot of like soul music and things like that. Sometimes they're really sad. It's like, oh, it's singing about the end of relationships and opportunities lost. And if we listen to songs like that every day, it's not to say we never listen to them, but those ideas then get programmed into our subconscious because they're just playing in the background without us really paying attention. So
That is
really important.
really, really good point. And I wanted to play the song No Surprises by Radiohead on the guitar. And I said, this is really cool. I like this song. And then as I started to play it, I realized the words, and the people listening can check the words. And I thought, no, I don't want to play this. And I literally, my guitar teacher asked me the following week, so how did it go? No surprise. No, I read the words. I realized I don't like this song. I mean, essentially, he said that if he dies, if I understand it correctly, there will be no surprises. I was, oh, great. I didn't realize it was about that at all. So yes, it's such a good point. And these things do have an impact, especially if they're songs we listen to or play regularly. Once more, it goes in our subconscious. So consciously, we might not be thinking about these words, but subconsciously, we're absorbing them. And yes, they're really, I mean, the power of word is huge. As coaches, we know this, as hypnotherapists, even more. And that's where affirmations come in, etc. So really good point. And the other things you said about the senses, such as, so there was music, but then vision boards are huge. And then the sense, also really, really nice. This is a great way to rewire your subconscious for the people who are listening. Just a brief note before we finish, because we're almost over with the podcast. I know you contributed one key chapter in Activate Your Life around sweet living. I know you have a program around La Dolce Vita. Would you mind sharing a few words on this and the concept also of sweet life? Because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, so the concept of sweet life is defining your sweet life, whatever that may be. So I don't have a formula for it's this, it's that, it's the other. Like, I help people tune into exactly what their vision is. So what does your definition might be? I want to spend more time with my family, and that's why I set up my business. Someone else's is they want to travel more, so it all needs to be online, and or they want to create, and you know, everybody has a different vision. And the Sweet Life program is all about tapping into that and then unpicking what is stopping you from getting there right now. Because the most powerful moment for me in my coaching journey was my very first session with my coach, when he was like, what do you really want to do? And I told him, and it was this big, it's my long-term vision of having a retreat center. And I also bake, which is why my business is La Dolce Vita, because it's the sweet life in Italian. And he was like, well, why are you not doing it? I'm like, that's a really good question. So it unpicks, okay, well, this is the vision. Let's break down the blocks as to why you're not there right now. So any stories that are holding you where you are, reprogram them, and then set some new ones. So you go from having a team of your subconscious that's holding you back to a team of your subconscious that's actually lifting you up every time, because it is not easy. This journey is simple, but it's not easy. So every time where you do have the moments where you think, is this really worth it? Can I really do it? Because it is a big vision, that you've got that support there in your subconscious, and with these tools, whether that is the song, the journal, the affirmations, whatever it is, to help you lift you up every time. And for me, the hypnotherapy is a really powerful part of that toolbox that helps you create that vision. So it's a four stage process, and the tool, the exercise in the Activate Your Life book is the first one, which is all about, it's a really interesting one, because it's super exciting to visualize, and then you're like, oh, I'm not there, and it opens up. It can be quite difficult for people, because they're like, this is what I really want to do, and I know that I can really do it, but then the realization of there will always be stuff that you're not doing, but there will always be stuff that you are, and then creating a path to tiny changes every day that will get you there. Because it's not about, for me, it's not about revolution. Most people do not need or cannot facilitate a revolution in change, but you can make evolutionary changes every day and make tiny, I call them tiny habits. So I don't know, for a lot of people, underpinning change will be health. Like, I want to have the energy to be able to show up for my business every day. So what are you going to do about it? If you're a person, so I had someone recently that was like, well, I do yoga every day. So, well, have you got your mat out then? When did you last get your mat out? You can't say, I'm going to be a person that does yoga every day and then just not. That's actually a really simple, if if your body is capable to do it, even do it then. Don't tell me you're going to do it. And I had the same with languages for ages. I was like, I want to be fluent in Italian, and I would have it on my goals every month and every day. And then I just got bored of listening to myself say, I'm going to be fluent. I'm like, if I'm going to be fluent, got to book a lesson. So it encourages people to really like have the mirror up and say, well, okay, which bit are you going to take action from, and then get the subconscious support to then create the sweet life.
Wonderful. I think it's such a perfect note to finish on. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being on the show today. Really, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.